It is the ability to heal something. It is an ability to transform something which has no life and churn life back to it. If material gains are not coming through, you will find absolute dissatisfaction in all spheres of life. And thereby, it is a very tricky situation. People with this combination will really enjoy if they are in professions that bring in empathy, which bring in care, which bring in that level of impact in the karma that they're doing. Hi guys, welcome back to Devastrology. Today we are going to be continuing our series where we are talking about the placement of planets across all houses and the significances of the same. And in today's video we will be discussing about Venus and its placement across all the 12 houses in your Vedic chart. Now folks, before I jump into explaining the significances of Venus, you must understand that we are making general predictions here without taking into account any conjunctions, yogas, aspects of benefic or malefic planets, or even taking into account the sign placement in which the planet is sitting, and it will also have an impact to the same. Now, to make this construct simpler, I am breaking it down into specific playlists, and as we will continue with our journey through the course of the entire, or hopefully in future beyond that as well, you will notice that combination of all these analyses will fit into how you can decipher, decode the purpose, the significances, the impact of these planets in combination in your entire chart. Many of you also keep asking me questions that will this have an impact in D9? How do I start deciphering that? Guys, before jumping into a divisional chart, you have to understand that D1 chart in itself can give you a very comprehensive view of everything about your life. Yes, if you want to chisel down into very specific nuances, if you want to break down into very specific areas of concern, say your marriage, your relationships, your love life, children, the kind of assets you're going to be building, your career, and whatnot, then we do a deep dive into a divisional chart as well, a D9, a D10, a D4, a D3, or any of those for matter. But we have to first figure out that how these conjunctions, these planetary positions, these placements are impacting our D1 itself. And thereby it is important for us, before we understand the placement of Venus into specific houses, understand what this Venus is bringing to the table. So, Venus, also known as Shukracharya in Hindi, is the demon guru. Daitya Guru Shukracharya is what Venus is known for. He is the counterpart coach, if I may say, in a simple language to what Jupiter denotes for devas or for anybody as a matter. Now, when we are talking about Venus, what does Venus signifies itself as a coach, as a guru, as a mentor and a guide. He has his own values as well. And I have a take. Venus is the coach of somebody who doesn't have a strong play. He tends to help. Venus tends to help an underdog. If rewind back in time and refer to the mythological stories, he was siding with the demons. And why was that? Why would a guru not know that who's going to win a war, who's going to win a battle, even in the war, to extract the elixir whilst the great churning of the seas were happening against the demons and the gods? Shukracharya or Venus still chose to support them. He would have known it, right? Yet he chose to support them because intrinsically, Venus likes to support the underdogs. He likes to support something which is materialistic by nature, and that is exactly what is denoted in symbolism with the demonic likes. Because when all these ancient scriptures were written, the good and the bad, spiritualism versus materialism, day versus night, was broken into two parts in itself. But for us human beings, for you and me, while I'm recording this video and you are watching this entertainment YouTube channel on astrology, you are also trying to understand that there is a spectrum of this ability within us. There is a god and a demon residing within us. And that is where, when you will seek that spiritual guidance, you will speak to a spiritual guru like Jupiter. Who's that Jupiter? It's your teacher in school, it's your coach who's mentoring you for something, or somebody who's guiding you to be have some interesting dating skills, let's say, for that matter, or the kind of clothes you should wear is what is denoted by the Venus in your life. He is that, or she is that coach in your life who's mentoring you as a Venus there. And I would want you to start thinking from a larger perspective. Don't see these planets just as planets. Don't read astrology just as some large bodies revolving around us and we have to derive certain interpretations out of it. No, it is the significances which are present around us, living and non living, that are having an impact to our life. And that's what Venus is representing as well. That materialistic approach, guru for materialism. He is also known as the healer. Why is that? Because the ancient story, and again, I'll try to derive some symbolism through it. He was the one who was granted the boon of Mrit Sanjeevani from Shivji. It's like a blessing to revive the dead. What does it mean for us? It means that it is the ability to heal something. It is an ability to transform something which has no life and churn life back to it. That's what Venus can do to your life. If you are having demotivation, if you are having no charm about certain aspect of life, that Venus can materialistically revive that charm back in your life. Venus had another story. He's known to have just one eye. He was blind by an eye. And I'm pretty sure many of you would have heard the anecdotal story on the Brahman avatar of Vishnu as well. But again, if you see from that symbolism, what we learn is that this Venus was fighting for the demon king. And Vishnu had to come down, take the Brahman avatar and count those 2-3 steps, and then the entire earth, his head, as well as the heavens under his control. But Shukracharya was trying to mentor his student that how he should be able to rule the entire planet or rule the entire universe. But whilst he was reprimanded for siding with a demon, at the same time he had the courage to stand against God too. Yes, that one blind eye also signifies that a deeper impact of Venus in our lives can result into making wrong decisions, bad decisions as well. And I would not say right or wrong here, but I think you get the drift of what I'm trying to indicate. It is more towards the material aspects of life. I said that he sides with the underdogs. If you take the story of Mahabharata as well, between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, Shukracharya or Venus was siding with the Kauravas. He would have known that Kauravas are bound to lose. Krishna himself was fighting and supporting Pandavas. But I think the important thing for us, at least in Dev Astrology as a channel, is that we derive symbolism out of it and see that how we can transform of our lives. And I'm pretty sure when you would have looked at the thumbnail that we've put in for this particular video, that Venus signifies love in our life. It signifies romance. For a man, it also signifies the sperm itself. But in general, love and romance is seen from Venus. He signifies the childbirth, procreation, reproduction in our life. He signifies our relationships in general. So if you see, the entire human connection can be seen through Venus itself, both for a male as well as for a female. But because Venus loves beauty, that is going to be the core. He is the one who's enticed by what at the face value itself to begin with. Beauty can come through Jupiter as well, folks, and we will talk about it when we make the Jupiter video. But he is enticed by beauty, the physical form of it. He would be enticed by everything that encompasses that beauty, that fragrance, that hair, that look, that get up in terms of clothes, the kind of luxurious products that you would want to wear, consume, so as to look beautiful in itself. The intoxication that comes with that beauty, the indulgence that is required to immerse yourself, to make yourself look beautiful, presentable, articulate. This Venus will thus represent creativity as well, because you have to use your creativity to stitch your clothes, to buy the right look, to match those colors, to make yourself presentable, to be articulate enough to present yourself in front of the world. It will bring in art forms within itself. So whether or not you like painting, you like brushing, you're a hairstylist, it could be dancing, singing, whatever art forms you can imagine. In fact, the craft that you bring to the table, even in your technical work. There are so many people who love to do coding, and one would say it is Saturn, Rahu, or Mars that is deriving it. No. If it is your Venus in combination to that, and a strong one, it could bring that meticulous strategy in you in which you can represent your code in a very different way. You could be doing your algorithms or creating a product in itself that looks beautiful. Look at Apple products versus Windows, Microsoft products for that matter. You see the difference? Venus is on which side? And this is very interesting, folks, because as we understand the significances of what this Venus are, we will be able to understand that how this Venus is going to be impacting our life. Yes, this Venus will define spirituality as well. It will define prosperity as well. But prosperity and abundance will be not so much in mental sphere, but more in the materialistic sphere. What your physical form wants to consume. It is different from what Jupiter offers. Yes, it has a spiritual bent of mind because Venus is knowledgeable. It is going to bring you knowledge of spirituality as well. It is so surprising. Venus gets exalted in the sign of Pisces, which is the inimical sign of Jupiter, whilst it gets debilitated in a friendly sign of Mercury in Virgo. But that's exactly what Venus is trying to tell us. He wants to be fair. I'm going to be exalted even at my enemy's sign, at my enemy's house itself. Why? Because he likes what is good about others, even his opponent. And that is the beauty of Venus. Venus denotes diamonds. Venus denotes every luxurious product that you can think of. Your apparels, clothing, food. Remember, in the Kalpurush chart, in the core framework itself, he rules the second house and the seventh house. We've talked so much from a seventh perspective, but he loves fame. He loves the marketplace. He loves to trade. He loves to find a balance. And that is why a lot of times Venus is the planet that can bring in resolution to conflicts. It is amicable. He is a moderator. Better, I would say, he's a mediator as well at times. He will bring beauty in its voice, in its speech, in its looks, wherever it is placed. So if it is placed with your career, it is going to bring beauty in that sphere as well, guys. And I hope if this analogy, if this symbolism of Venus is clear to you, you would then be very easily able to grasp what would this Venus deliver to you when it comes into different houses. So without further ado, folks, let's try and deep dive and understand what happens when Venus traverses across all houses. So when Venus is in your first house, what happens is that aspects of beauty become very relevant for the native. And again, we're talking about the Devon chart here. So let's understand. Your first house denotes your personality, denotes your face, the way you are built. And Venus coming into the first house is going to give an impact to all those traits. Your looks, your facial features could be very sharp. Now, please do not read into the complexion of a person here just yet, because complexion could have an impact dependent on the conjunctions, aspects, placement of other planets as well that are interfering with your first house, maybe your Lagna Lord's placement as well. But here we are trying to understand in isolation the placement of Venus in itself, which would mean that usually this person would be very attractive he would be or she would be attractive to look at. They would have very interesting magnetic personality in itself. And there will be some level of melody. Please understand the symbolism here as well. There will be a melody in your personality. You would find that people like that charm that you carry within yourself. Important thing to note is that somewhere or the other, even your foes, your enemies, will admire you about something. It's a beauty of Venus coming into the first house itself. You are a person who is fond of luxuries. You are a person who likes to assimilate good products, good assets. When you go out and present yourself to the world, you are very keen to wear the right set of clothes, the right set of fragrance, the right shaving cream for that matter, or cologne that you wear in the external world. Even staying back home in isolation, you like to keep well. You like to keep things in order, beautiful, so to speak. A nice kept bed, dress, clothing, your cabinet. See how each of those small little elements will add up to build and shape your personality. And there will be some level of beauty in it. Then, the other aspect that comes with natives having Venus in the first house is that you will have some level of attraction when you are speaking, when you are delivering your thoughts. There will be a very attractive persona, and it is not just in your personal space, romantic space, but within your personality itself. People would admire you for that. You could be very sensuous in nature. Venus denotes relationships, he denotes love, romance. Sensuality would be there, and sensuality gets heightened if it is having some sort of an effect of Rahu to the level of delivering negative outcomes as well. And we'll touch that bit in a few minutes. But usually what I've observed is that these people, they are very romantic, die-hard romantic by nature. And that is very evident for the people who are Taurus ascendants or who are Libra ascendants as well, for that reason. Because romance, partnership, collaboration, it becomes one of the key features of their life. It becomes one of the key goals, objectives of their lives as well. So you will find that you liked to have that sort of connection, that connection with people around you. And it will literally trickle down in your persona when you are interacting with people. You could be tad bit flirtatious in nature, especially if you have some or the other play of Mercury happening in here. If Mars, for example, is having some sort of a strength connection with this Venus, then it can make you very bold and pursue romantic pursuits aggressively too. But an afflicted Venus here can actually reflect negatively on your character as well. And that is why a lot of times we see that Venus, when it is coming into the ascendant or even in the seventh house, it can bring certain complexities in your relationships too. You will have some heightened libido, especially if Venus is not debilitated. If debilitated, it will have some additional effects towards your health as well, and we'll touch that in a separate video. But at this point in time, what I would want to call out is that a good Venus is going to provide you healing capability. You might fight with certain health issues, you might have issues with respect to relationships, but you will be able to heal those relationships as well. Why? Because Venus carried that boon from Shivji where he got Mrit Sanjeevani. People with this kind of a placement could actually pursue careers in the field of medicine, in the field of healing. And when I say medicine, just doesn't mean that you end up becoming a good doctor or a nurse. It could be a combination of multiple things. Your profession could be completely different, but you might be able to address the problems and help people come out of that pain. So it's a very beautiful placement for Venus. Yes, directionally, it not might be the best placement, but it brings in such strong capabilities where you are able to express yourself. There will be a melody in your voice. That is one bit I missed calling out a few seconds. Your voice in itself will have that sweet tone. The baritone of the voice would be beautiful. It will be calming for people. You've seen men also speak very softly at times. Venus with that sort of a placement can bring that sort of a wavy form, that tone that enhances your presentation itself in communication. Remember, he's the Lord of the second house. He's going to impact something or the other on that front as well. Children are something that could be very important to you. Creativity comes naturally to you. You would be fond of different kind of art forms. You would want to grasp that within you. Or if you are not essentially possessing that sort of a talent, you are very appreciative of somebody else creating. So you might have the ability to understand, recognize, and appreciate a specific art form. It could be in music, it could be in dancing, it could be even when you are interested in sports. You would like to see the panache in a person that they are bringing, the craft that they're bringing in the sports they play. So if you watch tennis, you are not just liking the brutal force of the swing of the racket, but you would want to see that how a person is able to spin whilst hitting with their racket, or with badminton and whatever sports you can think of. In cricket, you would like that stylish player while batting or swinging the ball. Any sport that you can think of. So you are able to observe that quality. Many a times I've seen that people this with this combination could have that intent of either rooting for the underdogs, or they could be underdogs themselves and they put up a great fight. No one would imagine people with this combination to suddenly sweep in and win a particular opportunity, win a particular project, win a particular game that they are playing. It's a good placement for Venus. Venus from here is aspecting your seventh house. And what this does is that your desire towards partner is heightened. In an afflicted Venus situation, though, be careful, guys. You tend to fall into a lot of infatuations. You tend to fall into love pretty easily, or you tend to get into relationships pretty easily, sporadically for that matter. You long for a partner who is beautiful in nature, who is beautiful in their looks as well. Yes, beauty does take a heightened form for you. But at the same time, this Venus can bring beautiful levels of spirituality, or you could be attracted. I told you, you are able to sense craft, beauty in others as well. So in your partner as well, you could spot that level of spirituality that might attract you, that might entice you. And that spirituality would be not like sitting in isolation. Of course, it's if it is afflicted with Ketu, but it would be something of expressive in nature. When you would do a religious activity, you might want to light up candles and diyas and lights in different shapes and forms and make it look very beautiful. Bring in flowers and stuff, bring in a lot of fragrances. So you try to make the spiritual activity, that spiritual connection as well, with a lot of grandeur, beauty in itself. And I like usually this placement. It's just that an afflicted Venus, which has a malefic impact, that could be tricky for a person's character. And you have to be careful in that, because this same Venus can bring in a lot of indulgence. It can bring in a lot of intoxication. So it can drive you towards picking habits that are not usually healthy for you, but it also gives the ability for you to fight back against it. So if you're struggling with any bad habits, guys, you have the ability in yourself to come out of it. Now, we will talk about Venus coming into the second house. Second house denotes your family. It denotes the kind of food you consume. It denotes the kind of tone, language, communication that you have. It is the representation of your wealth, savings, money in itself. As nothing better than Venus coming into the second house, because somewhere or the other, it is the natural lord of the second house, it being the Taurus sign in the Kalpurus chart. But we have to also be cognizant of this Venus's sign and the dignity of Jupiter, because Jupiter is the Karaka of prosperity, abundance, wealth. He's the national Karaka of second house in a way. Placement of Jupiter, dignity of Venus, or Venus's sign placement into the second house, and we will cover that bit, guys. We will be doing a separate series of all these planets into different signs as well to get more clarity. And this is going to be hyper critical for you. Now, Venus coming into the second house is going to bring a lot of interest towards the kind of food that you consume. You could be interested in the cuisines of your culture itself. You could be interested in making food in itself. You might enjoy treating people around you with the kind of differences you are able to spot with the use of spices or ingredients and things like that. And that's the beauty of Venus's presence here. In fact, if it has some level of impact of Rahu, you might be much open in exploring new things as well. Variety of cuisines for that matter. Venus is present here is also hyper good for you to improve on your savings, to improve on your wealth, to add to the accumulation that you want to do. Because Taurus sign, it is an earthy sign. Second house, it denotes accumulation, it denotes stability in wealth. And Venus is going to bring that tendency naturally into the second house. So, no matter what pyramid structure that you fit in the societal class, at your level, you will be able to understand that you have a tendency to build onto that, to add onto that. This Venus can bring very good harmony in relationships. Within your family, you would want to provide them to the best to your capability, to the best of your ability. You will be working hard towards creating situations where you find that level of beauty at home as well. The relationships that you will create, they will have beauty. And I'm not just talking about materialism here. Guys, I'm talking at a more subtle level where it is something that is emotional, that is felt within your space. Singing, speaking, oration capabilities, they become pretty good with Venus's placement here. People with this placement, they will be able to articulate their thought process effectively in a smaller friend circle, family network. I'm talking more of an informal setup here. Lot of singers will have this kind of a placement. In fact, I was trying to check Adele's chart. I love the way she sings. I think in her case, it's Jupiter. I don't really remember it at this point in time. But again, Jupiter is the Karaka for the second house. But I think there are so many singers that you will observe. They will have a very strong placement of Venus in the second house itself. And that's a great thing that happens with this presence. Then what you would also observe is that the same Venus is giving an aspect to the eighth house. And that is why Venus's presence in the second house also makes a person interested in opposite sex, in having sexual encounters, in hidden encounters as well. And a tricky placement of Venus, that is why is called out tricky, because it gives you that empowerment to explore something which is an affair like of a situation, a third party situation at times. Remember, it is not individually that the Venus will be able to do this, because there is a lot of confusion that Venus alone will be able to deliver that. No, it will need some sort of a unusual situation, debilitation, exaltation, combination with one of the malefics, aspect of one of the malefics, especially if it is in trine to a Rahu or a Ketu. It can impact your relationships deeply with that. There has to be a separate video in terms of talking about these conjunctions, but yes, it brings that possibility too. Inheritance is something that could happen because of you. You could be the reason who brings in inheritance for someone else in your family, not necessarily you gaining inheritance. There's a lot of confusion about it. Okay, so you can deliver that. Venus in this placement also brings deep interest in a person to understand what is hidden. The hidden beauty is what you will look out for. Yes, some bit of interest towards astrology could come in, occult sciences could come in, because specifically if, let's say, Venus is the eighth lord in some form and it is coming to the second house, more so what you will observe is with this Venus placement, you will have a keen interest towards observing things that are hidden from you. So you would want to find, or you will be able to appreciate what others are not able to notice in specific scenarios, in specific situations. Yes, it can also bring in in the form of habits. Like somebody might want to consume alcohol, psychedelics for that matter, especially if it is in combination with a Rahu. And that can be a very tricky combination for you, because Rahu's interest will be to bring that materialism into this combination as well. But I hope broadly you are able to get a sense as to how will this Venus bring in results, its significances into your second house. Now, when Venus is coming into your third house, understand this is the first house of Kam Trikona. Third house is the house of your hard work. It is the house of your labor. And it is considered one of our tough houses for a benefic planet to be in. It is a very challenging situation for a benefic planet, naturally benefic planet like Venus, to come and deliver results into your third house. The first thing that you will observe with this is that the relationships that you will have in general with your siblings, with sisters in your family, is going to be one that has a lot of affection. There is going to be very sweet communication capability that you will have in these relationships. It is possible that you could be spending in efforts to solve and address problems of your siblings as well. And very importantly, those issues could be related to financial matters, relationship matters in their life. Your effort will go in that direction. For others, what you will observe is, see, Venus is going to be a little turbulent in the third house, but it brings heightened excitement towards karma. And that is why, people do consider this Venus's position a tad bit negatively, because it tends to bring that drive, that libido, that interest in a person to put in additional efforts towards sexuality. If it is afflicted, if Venus is acting as a natural malefic for your specific chart, you would realize that you would be putting in efforts to go exorbitant amount of efforts to go in a direction to pursue relationship, to pursue pleasures for yourself. And thereby, if you are a married person, it could bring also situations where you pursue relationships outside of your marriage. And that is the negative trait of this Venus. But on the positive side, this same Venus can give you the ability to focus your hard work, to focus your energy, efforts into gaining luxuries in life, to gain wealth, to provide for yourself. You are going to put efforts towards the financial stability of your life. And somewhere or the other, material gains are going to become absolutely critical in a person's effort. If material gains are not coming through, you will find absolute dissatisfaction in all spheres of life. And thereby, it is a very tricky situation. This is also a placement where you could find a person striving for running their own venture, or if they are in a job, they would want to pursue something which makes them either self enabled, self employed, or they are masters of their own destiny in their job life as well. They would want to have some sort of a control in their profession so that they can create that impact towards materialism, towards growth. Spirituality for you will again be critical, but spirituality for you would be like a daily habit of some form. It could be like visiting a place of worship nearby your residence. It could be doing a daily activity at your home in terms of just bringing set of flowers and offering it to maybe your father or your temple at home, or to lighting up candles at home in your mini altar or church, whatever you call it. So that sort of a tendency will also come in, but the conflict in your spiritual understanding versus people around you, or specifically your father, because of that Venus's aspect to the seventh, to the ninth house. While it gives beauty in the relationship as well, in the connection with the father, and I'm sorry I switched into the aspect bit here, and I will come back more in the placement, but that thought just started flowing in my head. But whilst there is a sort of an agreement, there is an unsaid disagreement as well with your father, with your fatherly figure, or even at your work with your bosses. Like, you would want to keep relationship amicable at the surface. It will be very well moderated, but you could in principle be disrupted, because see, the natural house of ninth is ruled by Jupiter, and these are conflicting energies. They both are spiritual, but they are opposing in their thought process, they are opposing in their principles itself. And you will find more often than not at your workplace, while you accept what charge of responsibilities is coming from your bosses, you will have a different perspective towards how they want to run things and how you want to deliver it. You might be okay with what your father tells you to do, but you might have a very conflicting opinion in how you want to execute it. So that's the beauty of this Venus as well, because it gives you a different perspective and it pushes you to work in that particular direction. But when we try to understand this Venus's position in the third house itself, specifically, what you will understand is that your interest, your push will come towards material aspects of life. Materialism becomes heightened. It's a calm first house of the calm trikona that is going to come into play for you. Relationships is something that you will pursue harder. You might not be satisfied in one relationship. You might not be happy with what you are gaining in one relationship. and you might want to discover more, especially if there is an impact of a malefic rag like Rahu and Ketu. With a Ketu, you might detach very easily and get connected with somebody else, and you might not still not find that satisfaction. While Rahu will keep that giving you that illusion that there is more that you have to gain and there is more that you have to discover in your life. Venus here also brings beautiful travels. You go and visit good places. You are a person who would enjoy those rhythm of going in weekend nights outs to restaurants, explore pubs, clubs, and things like that. Like you really want to do that on a weekly basis, fortnightly basis, pretty often, pretty regularly. It's not that it's something that comes into play only when you're taking a holiday. You would want to experience that in your regular life. And it is going to build over a period of time as the Kam Trikon energy expands in your life too. You could be taking very good measures in terms of building a career in the field of art and creativity. People with this combination should bring some level of creativity in their work. It brings success to them. It is a natural remedy that you must follow. No matter the kind of field you are operating in, you are a surgeon. Try and see how you can approach that particular problem statement differently. You are a coder, you are a scientist. Try and explore how you can bring craft in your work. And of course, naturally, for people who are in the field of Venus, this is going to build stupendous careers in that space. You are a boutique designer, you are a restaurateur, you are going to do well in this space with Venus with this placement in itself. So it does bring certain elements of strength to your life, but the weaknesses also lie when you are digressed with your goals because of the heightened gamma energy of Venus in this trine. Now, when Venus moves into the fourth house, it is place where Venus finds natural strength directionally. He feels comfortable in the fourth house, though his relationship with Moon may not be one of the best one. But directionally, Venus feels very comfortable because this is the house of your mental peace. It is the house of your assets. It is the house of your natural, movable, immovable assets that you have created for your life. Your cars, your home, your house, your IP, intellectual property. So Venus coming into the fourth house, what you will notice is that people with this combination, they have a very specific tone, a very specific order of bringing beauty to their life. They would want to keep their home well kept. Again, this doesn't mean that you are going to be just adding precious elements to your home. Yes, that is a possibility. Especially a debilitated Venus, which is getting a Nage Phanga with Mercury sitting in here. Imagine that sort of a situation. Or an exalted Venus. Those kind of unusual situations will bring some deep interest in you to bring the best of the breed products to your home. For example, you might be staying in a small town, in a small city, away from all the luxuries that are available in your place because most of the times you see the best of the features are available in larger cities. But you would actually travel, stuff, buy things, and bring them to your own house because you want to amplify the beauty and make it as posh, as luxurious, as beautiful. Say, for that matter, if you were living in a bigger city, just because in your small town, in your small city, you don't have those amenities available, doesn't mean that you are going to deny themselves to yourself. That's a beauty of Venus sitting in here. Your thoughts in itself could be very sensuous by nature. Your expressions could be extremely sensuous. Mind you, the relationship with mother may not necessarily be driven by Venus because Moon is the main karaka for that, main significator for that. But Venus in general will bring this tendency in you that you are sensitive in how you are expressing, that there will be some natural level of empathy within you which will come with this Venus's placement. This Venus will also be giving an aspect to your 10th house, and that is where this entire craftiness, this entire balance that you have within your mind, you want to express that at your workplace as well. So people with this combination will really enjoy if they are in professions that bring in empathy, which bring in care, which bring in that level of impact in the karma that they're doing. So you guys are going to succeed if, say, you are in the field of healing, medicine, nursing, listening to others. Even if you are an attorney with this placement, you are going to be one who's going to help resolve conflicts, bring in solutions. You are going to bring in calm. People with jobs in the field of human resources. And within human resources, you could be very specific in terms of a part that deals with, let's say, learning and development or business HR for that matter, than more of a talent acquisition person. You're trying to understand how that shift is happening in your profession as well. If you are in a conflict situation, people who are working, let's say, in Red Cross, that is a healing ability. You are doing a social activity in itself. Of course, you'll have to have other combinations too. But Venus does so well in the fourth house in spheres of profession that involve that human touch, that involve getting into people empathy, people relationships, and then solving them. That craftiness is going to be beautiful with you folks. You are going to do very well in terms of making your assets look cool, look beautiful, look luxurious. No matter the budgets that you are operating in, you have this capability to make best use of your budget and create that impact. And that's the best part of this Venus. Yes, afflictions, they will cause some of the other issues. And we are not dealing with conjunctions and afflictions at this point in time because we are focused on what Venus individually can deliver here. It can give you a very, what should I say, beautiful mind, right? Your knowledge or your understanding about beauty in general. How there are so many people who do this get ready with me thing, right? On Instagram and stuff that I keep watching, and like it amuses me. But that is something that they have innately developed in themselves. They know how to help a person achieve that particular thing. Of course, Venus in eighth also can do that, by the way. But Venus in fourth brings you that innate understanding of what looks well. You have a good sense of colors. If Venus is in water elements, it can give you deep interest in terms of intoxication, in terms of fragrances, your knowledge and expertise in that. You could actually work in that industry as well if Venus has that watery connection in the fourth or the 10th for that matter too. Like Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, of course. The significances with each of the water sign will also keep on changing. But that is the beauty that this Venus is going to bring to your life. In general, this Venus can bring in prosperity to your life. Material gains are possible with this Venus. But this Venus can also make a person a bit lethargic. It can make a person not very aggressive in terms of pushing for long hours. One needs the support of a Saturn to do that somehow. So somewhere or the other, that slack behavior, that dropping the ball kind of a thing also comes into people with Venus having in the fourth house itself. Children are going to bring a lot of peace. You would want to have kids. Even if you find situations where you might not be best prepared, but kids' presence is something that would be unavoidable for you in your life. You would want to have kids. You would be happy around kids. The way you are talking to children and interacting with them will also be very beautiful to you. So that's another, that motherly behavior, so to speak, naturally comes in people with having Venus in the fourth. Yes, I want to call out that people who are married and are, or even in relationships with Venus's placement here, somewhere or the other, it, it brings a natural level of care, sensitivity, emotions in how they are treating their spouses. They tend to be super empathetic towards their partners. See, because naturally you have the tendency, it's like natural movement 3 places away or 10 places away from itself. So this Venus wants to put in that effort. It wants to deliver good in terms of relationships, and the mindset is going to be like that itself. So it's not at all a bad placement unless and until this Venus becomes conjunct with a malefic, it has an impact of a malefic. Or if the sign placement, the zodiac sign placement of Venus is turbulent as well. And we will talk about those sign placements as well in the next series, which is going to be following this one. Now, when Venus is sitting into your fifth house, Venus is all about your creativity. It is all about your expression. It is about your craftiness. It is about speculation. It is about your relationships, romance. See, and somehow or the other, these are the natural traits of Venus in itself. It is a house of your degree, of your qualification, your education. It is the house of your children. It is a house of your past life punya. The gains that you are getting from your last life is also seen from the fifth house. And when Venus comes into this placement, a lot of time, just like the Venus in the Lagna, in the ascendant that I was referring, people with Venus in the fifth house are also die-hard romantics. You are going to find that naturally you have this level of compassion, this level of attractiveness, this zeal to pursue your romantic relationships and bring them to fruition. Because it's a connection with the 11th as well, that natural desire exists within Venus to achieve that. Venus here is going to make you very creative in art forms. It is going to bring that natural tendency in you to pick up an instrument, learn to play something. You will be good with music. You will be good in some sort of an art form. I'm very confident. And if you've not pursued that in life, there is no end for you to adapt and adopt that capability as well. You will be able to do that vocationally as well very successfully. Venus in general is considered good here for speculative activities as well. Remember, Venus is one who favors the underdogs. He wants to support the ones who have lesser chance to win. So when Venus comes in here, and what is the stock market? What are the speculative activities, gambling sort of activities? It's a probability where you can win or not. So when Venus comes into this particular placement, it tries to help you to win. Now, whether or not that success is written in your life or not is dependent on a bunch of other placements and conjunctions and aspects too. Fifth Lord, Sun, because Sun is the natural significator of the fifth house, natural ruler for that matter, Jupiter. But in general, my observation is that when Venus comes in here, it brings some level of success to a person's life in speculative activities. I have seen this placement in the chart of gamblers, and they tend to do pretty well, like gambling capability in terms of going and playing professional poker. Gains are seen with Venus acting in here. You will be able to do very well if you are actually bringing in your professional educational qualification in this sphere itself. In fact, many of you will observe that your relationships will be formed, built during your uni years, university years, I meant. So during your uni days, you will be getting in contact, building in romantic relationships and pursuits, and having those moments of exploring your sensuality as well. See, romance is a natural thing that comes to Venus in this placement. So don't be surprised if that fifth connection ignites. And when I say university, consider this your bachelor's, your master's period. So a lot of relationships will happen for you in this period. And when I say lot of relationships, it could be a grand relationship or multiple strings, depending on other planets too, as to how they are impacting this Venus. But getting a degree, getting a professional certification in the sphere of acting, in fashion designing, in trading, in the significances of Venus is going to be good for you. Hotel management. You are going to do very well in those spheres if Venus is in this placement. Then you have to also understand Venus sitting in here, he is aspecting the 11th house. So somewhere or the other, you have this deep desire, and those desires could be heightened towards materialism. You would desire beauty for yourself, desire beauty in the partner that you seek, in the romances, in the relationship that you seek, and not just physical beauty. It could be beauty of your relationship, the way you feel connected with your partner. It's beautiful, actually, guys, if you think about it. So we cannot just consider everything in a negative fashion itself. This is such a beautiful thing with Venus coming in here because it wants to have that gravitas. And gravitas probably is not the right word, but depth. It wants to have that depth in the relationship as well. It wants to find that beauty. It wants to make it differentiated in the relationships that it is pursuing. It does give the possibility of having more daughters when compared to sons in your chart. Okay. I'm not denying that there is a possibility of having son as well, because maybe your spouse does that, other planetary combinations affect it and make that possible. But in general, Venus can deliver more female kids when compared to males. And I think overall it is a decent combination unless and until this gets some major affliction. Ketu, very, very tricky. Saturn, Venus, very tricky, right? Mars, Venus, tricky other ways. And we will talk about the conjunctions as well in our next series after the next one. So Hopefully by March, April, we'll reach there and we will talk about these conjunctions too to give you more clarity. But in general, this placement of Venus is considered to be a good one. Now, when we are talking about Venus coming into the sixth house, is the house of conflicts. It is the house of medical situations, emergencies, loans, litigations coming in your way. And when Venus comes into the sixth house, it is again a tricky situation for Venus to be in. Many a times, this particular Venus's placement could bring in afflictions in your relationships to begin with. Now, guys, I don't want you to be thinking extremely negative about this situation and imagine that this Venus would result into divorces. It is going to be resulting into separation. No, not necessarily. You need multiple other scenarios coming into place. But yes, because Venus has come into the sixth house, definitely it is going to bring in certain challenges, or challenges will come to this Venus or into your relationships in itself. There will be a lot of crest and troughs that will be coming in your relationships, and you have to bear through them, you have to go through them. A good remedy for this Venus, or another possibility in your life as a significance with this Venus, is that you are actually pretty good in resolving conflicts. You could be a person who could be pursuing a profession in the field of law, in the field of medicine, and you solve issues, you solve problems, you solve ailments for people, you help them come face the diseases that they are facing. So you could be very good in the field of medicine with this placement. Venus is a natural healer. He is going to help you excel in this sphere. This Venus placement is going to make you a good lawyer and a conflict resolution lawyer. I see lesser possibility of getting into criminal law. This is going to be more like family law sort of a situation. Or you act as a mediator if it is at a corporate level, or if it is into institutional law spheres. So you are able to resolve conflicts by acting as a mediator as well in this space, and you do pretty well. Your profession in finance can be pretty good. You could be in the sphere of mortgages, loans, helping people build something. It is not necessary in the sphere of deposits here. Understand how this is going to change dynamically for your specific chart. But Venus struggles here because a benefic planet coming into the house of regimen, it's coming into the house of daily schedule. One good thing or a remedy that you have to think of here is that you have to bring in some sort of relief in your remedies, in your regimen as well. Do something beautiful on a daily basis. Do some creative work. Sip that amazing cup of coffee whilst listening to music for yourself. You are going to do better in your relationships with this Venus if you are struggling. Strengthen that Venus by giving it the elements that it enjoys. You might be working in a job that requires you to address, something in the beauty industry, working in Estee Lauder, working in an apparels company, working in an e-commerce within the fragrances segment, working within the jewelry industry for that matter. Yes, job, employment, work in all of those spheres of life is going to be pretty good for you. You're going to succeed in that direction. So it's not a bad placement. It has a different significances, but it's a little bit tricky combination because somewhere or the other, a benefic has to deal with challenges here. But remember, folks, it is going to help you add material gains. Why do I say that? Because it is coming into an earth trikon, right? So it is going to help you build on your wealth, albeit with challenges that you will have to face. Facing challenges, obstacles is not going to be easy. And the moment you think with a top view in terms of bifurcating the problems and finding that balance within your problems as well, you are going to find easy to navigate with this Venus. It is aspecting your 12th as well. So healing, hospital related work is going to be interesting. You must go ahead and do some sort of charity donation. And it could be very well a monetary activity that you bring to the table. You will end up attracting enemies, unknown enemies to your life. And the best way to deal with that problem would be to address them with some level mediation, some level of empathy, some level of understanding the perspective of the other party as well, and not just what brings you to the table. That is how you are going to win with this Venus. So I hope it makes sense and you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying, by the way, these inputs, I will recommend you to smash on that like button and leave your comments and the feedback as well. All right. Now, when Venus comes to your seventh house, this is a tricky as well as a good position to be in. And I will start with a good bit. The best part is that Venus is coming into the natural house of its ownership. It rules the sign of Libra. So when Venus is coming into the seventh house, it is going to bring a lot of romance, beauty in your marital life. It is going to bring in expression in your marital bliss. You are able to articulate your thought process. You are able to communicate well with your partner. But you have to remember, this Venus should not be an exalted Venus or a debilitated one. We will touch that separately. In all other signs, usually this Venus is going to give you positive outcomes because it is coming into the house of marriage. It is coming into the house of partnership. It is coming into the house of business. And Venus means business. It is going to make you professionally very articulate, very business minded. Success comes to people with Venus in the seventh house if they are pursuing business, especially related to the seventh house lord in itself. If Venus is its own lord, then you must get into professions, into enterprise areas, enterprising opportunities which are related to apparel, which are related to beauty, which are related to jewelry, which is related to bringing in e-commerce as well to a certain extent. Venus in the seventh house can bring a person fame, recognition, respect. It will bring in adulation from the opposite sex as well. You will have admirers who are going to like you. And a tricky placement of Venus can risk that relationship in your marital bliss, that adulation, that admiration into something more. And there are a lot of things that I'm not able to touch upon in a YouTube video, but people will who have having this combination in their chart, they will be able to understand that what I'm alluding to in their life. But Venus's placement here in general, I consider it to be not bad, especially if it is not having any aspect or conjunction. Venus alone here tends to do much better than in conjunctions with other planets. Or it is better to not have any placement of a planet in the seventh house itself, for that matter, for marital relationships. Now, Venus also is going to make a person have a spouse who could be very beautiful in their looks, or they put a lot of effort, energy in making themselves presentable. Their partner could also be very spiritual by nature, very knowledgeable in some aspects. An exalted Venus could deliver that. Somebody who is very religious by nature, somebody who wants to do a lot of social activities for that matter. That sort of a partner is also getting attracted with Venus's placement in the seventh house. But in general, people with Venus in seventh are considered fortunate for monetary gains. Whether or not you are doing business, whether or not you are running your enterprise, even if you are in a job, you are going to lift your financial situation in your life. You might start from zero, you might start from rags, and it can take you to the riches in your journey, given you are following the right path that your planets are conveying you to. So it's a good placement for material gains. It is a good placement for accumulating money in general. This Venus is also going to bring in a lot of sexuality in you. It heightens your libido. Again, I'm not specifically talking about debilitated or exalted Venus in here. But in general, it is going to bring in that heightened libido. But an exalted or a debilitated Venus can make things very tricky as well. It could result into you gaining some sort of a medical issue as well because of your sexual attraction, because of your sexual interests. You are going to have the ability to push harder and beyond to find more gains. And in some cases, the same Venus can result into multiple partnerships, multiple relationships, multiple marriages as well. Don't get me wrong, many of you might just start jumping in, prompting that my partner has it, I have it, I'm not getting married again. There has to be the ninth house aspect also coming into play, fifth house also, and the lord of this thing, and a couple of other things. There are, see, multiple yogas. And I know many of you try to choke my neck and tell me that, Dave, you were wrong. Guys, there are multiple things that come into play, but I'm individually talking about a particular planet's placement and its significances. And it is not easy to package everything within a video and burst it out, because all of us, we have different placements, different degrees. The D9 chart in itself could be very different. It becomes important when we are looking at the seventh house. So that has to be also taken into consideration. But yes, Venus sitting in here has the ability to do that. You must bring some level of beauty, craftness in your profession, in your business. You have to continuously showering those attributes of Venus to your partner to maintain a healthy relationship as well. Now, that is a general speech. Somebody might say, Dev, that is the basic of what? It's a very general prediction. Guys, it is not. If you just look deep into it, Venus is coming into its natural house of partnerships, of relationships. And he would want everything that Venus signifies. You have to be articulate in your speech. You have to shower flowers to your partner. Bring in fragrances for her or him. Wear good clothes. Buy them good clothes. Yes, you might find this remedy in a way in a general relationships website as well, but it is all being communicated through astrology as well. So you have to inculcate that with the placement of Venus in here. Venus here is also going to make you naturally very beautiful, because it is going to be giving an aspect to the first house. And the 1-7 axis of Venus in here is very relevant. But in general, what I've observed is that you will have a spouse which is somewhere, what should I say, your better half in the relationship. They will be your better half in some shape or form, either in their looks or the kind of talent they carry within themselves, the kind of money they bring to the table in the relationships. They might end up making more money as well. They could be very from a rich background, or they gain more wealth over a period of time. And that is good for you, because that is coming collectively into the relationship, into the partnership, into the marriage. So it's a beautiful placement for Venus in all those regards. And the negative traits that I have referred to, the negative possibilities that can come into play, and I should not say negative, the alternate, tricky possibilities that come into play, they are dependent on bunch of other activities, but yes, they are a high possibility. So please stop living in that illusion that if it has not happened in your chart, you are above everyone else. Because I see some of the people, they tend to bring very specific questions without having either complete understanding of astrology or not able to have that mindset to learn that something can be possible in a chart. Necessarily doesn't mean if it hasn't happened yet, it will not happen maybe another time, because probably you've not been through that dasha antar dasha in your life yet. So things, the system is working, guys. Probably Dev is not able to communicate everything to you and not give that message. Doesn't mean it is not going to happen. I could be wrong, but the system is working in place. And that observation has come that people with Venus in 7th do find prosperous life. They do find the possibility of you having a partner who's highly fertile by nature is also very high with displacement. There are so many people who struggle with childbirth, reproduction, and have challenges, issues with that. But this Venus will actually give you that capability. It brings the promise of marriage as well. So it's a great thing that Venus comes in here. It brings a lot of prosperity to the relationship. But remember, everything that you are missing in your own chart, in yourself, in your own life, your partner tends to bring that to you. Venus is the supporter of the underdog. Remember that. So Venus is going to bring that in your partner. Your partner is going to fulfill everything that is missing in you through this Venus placement in your 7th house. And that is why I like this placement. It is not a bad placement at all. Now, when Venus is moving into the 8th house, is the house of spirituality. It is the house of occult. It is the moksha house. It is the house of research. And it is also a tricky house for Venus to get in. When Venus is in the 8th house, it can definitely make a person an astrologer, or at least having a sound knowledge of astrology. You are going to have a very good understanding of what the occult is meant to be, because Venus has that spiritual hat. Shukracharya was able to predict things, yet he partnered in certain areas with the people who are not supposed to mend because he was trying to help his students, his coach. But Venus coming into the eighth house is also going to bring one major transformation in your life, and that transformation will be led through relationships. Somewhere or the other, you will have a life changing experience where relationship is going to teach you where and what you need to change within yourself. It's it is something that you will observe once in your life. And guys, when I say relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean your romantic relationship or your marital relationship in itself. It could be relationship of any shape and form. But yes, what sort of a relationship can be seen through the sign, can be seen through the Lord of the eighth house. You will be able to get some sense of that. But more often than not, I've observed this happening in your marital relationship, in your romantic relationship itself. Venus also signifies sperm, it signifies childbirth, it signifies reproduction. And an afflicted Venus here for a man could result in the inability or lack of success in that space because it is going in the moksha house. It can be tricky. It can, on the other side, on the flip side of things, can bring in multiple hidden relationships as well. And that is why, with all due respect, I want to call out, I have observed that people who leverage profession of offering services of Venus, they tend to have a placement where earnings are coming in from the eighth medium. I'll just keep it to that, a word to the wise. So a lot of time, Venus here brings in earnings through its attributes. Now, does it mean that it only brings attribute earnings from one medium? No. I've seen it especially happen for people who have a Rahu sitting in conjunction, a Rahu aspecting, say from the 12th house, from the 5th house, or even with Ketu at times. Saturn doing that to people from the 6th. But it can make you very successful in mediums that are related to acting. You could be good with modeling. You could be making your earnings through Instagram, from YouTube, from digital mediums. You could be doing well behind the scenes. And that is why 8th house also delivers such a prosperous outcome with this same Venus in the 8th. You might be making designer clothes and publishing them on your website or on any of the social channels, and then you gain benefit out of it. You might be creating a Venus related product, jewelry. You could be a supplier of jewelry, of diamonds for that matter, and supplying it from faraway places. And that is the kind of outcome that this Venus can deliver for you. So it's a good situation to be in. Yes, you will have to see if there is a connection with the 10th Lord or with the 11th Lord or Venus being one of the Lords and being placed here. All of that has to be looked at, but Venus gives that beautiful possibility as well. Venus sitting in here could bring in inheritance, especially from your relation, from your partner, from your spouse. It is giving an aspect to your second house, and Venus sitting here and aspecting your second house can take you in a profession of food industry. You could do pretty well in that space. Your savings, your wealth creation, your wealth buildup can happen in that direction as well. So it is not all negative as well, but it will have some of its tricky situations coming into play because it is going into a difficult house. Venus's aspect to the second house means that overall you are going to build wealth in your life. You could yourself be a person who's fond of different kind of food. You could be a very good cook, chef yourself. So it's another element that this Venus brings to the table. I definitely propose many of the people who have this combination to pursue restaurant business, to pursue Venus related professions because they tend to do well with this combination. It can make you an astrologer. It can bring in gains, financial gains, being an astrologer, being a researcher for that matter. But when you are looking into this sphere of research, you have to think that your research has to be in the field of healing. You could be a person who's addressing as a consultant, as a guide, as a mentor, issues of relationships like a psychotherapist and address problems, and that could become your profession in itself. Could be something into the space of IP, where you build your knowledge and expertise, and you could be an expert in that space and making wealth there. Not a detective sort of a work. Understand the kind of difference I'm trying to call out here. So this Venus will have both its negative and positive charms, and you have to understand that how you are going to be leveraging this Venus for your gains. But I think it's a decent combination to be in. It does make a person high on libido. It does bring in a lot of interest into sexual pleasures, bed pleasures, and stuff. And at the end of the day, that interest doesn't mean all negative. The way you are channelizing your energy and the way it is resulting into specific interfaces in your life is going to make the major impact. Now, when Venus is moving into the ninth house, Venus is getting into the house of principles. It is getting into the house of destiny. It is coming into the house of your father, your bosses, superiors, religion. It is coming into the house of long distances. And it tends to again bring in mixed experiences. It is 3 places away from the seventh house. So it's the challenges of your marital bliss too. And because he's coming into the natural house of Jupiter, this Venus has a tendency to be slightly obnoxious in terms of its principles. It's like a retaliation to the surroundings that it is present in. Now, don't get me wrong. Your relationship with your father could be good. There will be a good dialogue. There will be a good support. Your father could bring in a lot of financial growth to your life. They might be the stepping stone in your life, but there will be some sort of a disagreement that will also exist in this relationship. And if it is not with your father, it could be with your mentors, with your gurus, with your spiritual guru for that matter, or with your bosses for that matter at work. Because it brings that level of uneasiness with Venus coming into the ninth house. It gives you your own set of principles that you believe in. People with this combination, they have this very unique nature of celebrating religion, celebrating spirituality with art forms. Now, you've seen so many people who would just sit in isolation and pray, whilst others, they like to dance, enjoy, do sing chimes, carols, bhajans, to connect themselves with a higher form. This Venus tends to do that. It wants to celebrate the entire spirituality and bring some sort of art form in it. You would want to sing for the higher form that you believe in. You might want to express it in the form of dance. Some people enjoy doing that. You might want to make beautiful paintings of gods or nature for that matter. You would want to color them. You might want to bring in flowers to bring that, to get that expression. If you are having an altar at your home, a small temple in your place, you would want to light up fragrances that light up that place, and you feel happy in that spiritual moment by doing these kind of activities. So it's a beautiful way of expressing your spiritual religious connection as well. You will be finding a partner, some sort of a relationship. When you go and pursue your higher degrees, higher education, your partner could be coming from a far land, far away from where you were born. Your connection in relationships with the best of your connections with will happen with people who were born or who come from a different place in itself, from a different culture in itself. In fact, you could end up meeting a partner in a long distance travel too. So you traveled from one city to another, took a flight, took a long haul train, and you are in a different place, probably for work or even vacation, and you might end up finding your partner there. So that's the beauty of this Venus here. But at the same time, this Venus will bring some level of mutiny in the belief system. It will bring some level of retaliation in you. It is giving an aspect to the third as well. It also brings some level of procrastination, delays, some sort of a laziness will creep into you with this behavior. You will have to bring in some effort in terms of supporting your siblings, especially your sisters, with a monetary support, or you might seek their support during the lifetime. In general, you are a person who would like to have luxurious holidays, good break from your monotonous work and find that level of peace in terms of travel. You could be a travel buff for that matter. And more often than not, you will spend time in identifying some of the most exotic places. You'll create that bucket list that you would want to be. Venus in ninth is going to do that to you. Again, from a profession perspective, you will do very well in Venus related spheres. So working in this space of medicine, working in the space of healing kind of affairs, in the beauty industry, in the apparel clothing industry, in some sort of art and craft related matters, creative matters here, because it is fifth to fifth, the ninth house. So creativity is going to bring in success to you. You learning different art forms can result into your profession as well. And it is not at all a bad thing for you to consider. Now, when Venus is moving into your 10th house, when Venus comes into the 10th house, it is getting bang opposite to the place where it finds directional strength. Now, does that mean it is a bad placement to be in? Not at all. This Venus can be a beautiful position for your career, for your karma, for your fame in life in general. In my observation, I've seen many of the celebrities, many of the people who have some sort of market fame, adulations from the masses, they do have Venus present in their 10th. Venus in the 10th will find you respect in whatever profession you do. People will people will admire the way you approach your profession in itself. Why? Because Venus denotes that sympathy. Venus denotes that coach behavior, that balancing act, that empathy that you bring to your karma and that you bring to your profession. And especially if you are tying that to the aspects of Venus itself, people with Venus in 10 tend to do pretty well. Why? Because you are going to bring in the energy of the fourth along with you. Yes, that Venus is aspecting fourth, but you are a person who will bring that balance to your profession. You have a very articulate way of looking at problem statements, at looking at the way you want to address the project, the initiative in your own hands. And there is some magic in your hands as well. So if you are related to things that have to be shaped by you, and again, it is a metaphorical statement, it is symbolism that I'm alluding to here, not necessarily taking up and carving on the stones. It's like when you are able to shape things somehow with Venus in the 10th house, you will be able to find a lot of professional success. Relationships can happen at your workplace for you. You could get in, you could find your life partner at your workplace. Or in a negative situation, it can result into workplace romantic situations as well, especially if it's a tricky afflicted Venus that we're talking about here. But the good part of Venus present in the 10th house is that material gains are meant to come through your own karma. So in a way, you are controlling your destiny to a certain extent. The harder you work, the more you succeed. Working hard with Venus is not easy. He likes beauty, right? So you have to use your creativity. You have to bring that innate knowledge in you at your work, at your profession. That balance has to be there. Venus is giving an aspect to the fourth house. Somewhere or the other, the kind of growth that you will find in your career will prompt you to build your assets. You are going to strive for a luxurious car. You are going to strive for a beautiful looking home. And it is such an imbalance that also happens here because your work is going to help you build your assets. But it will not give you enough time to enjoy your assets as well, because you'll have to lean back and reflect back to see that how can you go back and build further on that wealth. So it's an oxymoron sort of a situation. That's not the right word probably, but it's it's conflicting. It's paradoxical because you are focused towards your career. You are bringing that workaholism is not the right word for this. You are bringing high levels of creativity in your work, which results into you building that beauty that you want to enjoy in your peace at your throne where you sit. But you don't get enough time to enjoy your throne. You don't get enough time to justify the luxuries that you're striving and building for in your life. But this Venus can deliver all of that. So it's a continuous chase as well that happens with this Venus. And you have to also understand the dignity of the 10th Lord, the dignity of Jupiter, dignity of even Saturn and Mars and Sun in this case. And it becomes very important for your chart as to how Venus is then going to deliver result, because this same Venus can result into very shabby career situation as well in life. If it is not getting support, Venus here is going to need some very positive support. And a lot of times, this Venus can take you in the profession of medicine. You could be a doctor. You could be a nurse. You could be a fashion designer, right? You could be an architect. Say if it is in combination with a Saturn or a Mars, a very sound engineer, but doing something which is more of an architect level work, or it is like creating an algorithm which works very differently. So this Venus expects you to work in a different construct, and then it delivers some amazing outcomes for you. Now, when Venus moves into the 11th house, it is going into a house of desires. It is going into the house of wish fulfillment. It is going into the house of network. It is going into the house of the friends that you would like to keep company with. And it is both a rewarding as well as a challenging situation because, see, 11th house is 6th to 6th. So, not everything is rosy. It is 12th to 12th. So, it is the highest form of karma in the karma trikon for you. And Venus is going to the highest form of it. And what happens in here is a lot of times this heightens your desires to the next level. Venus sitting in here can bring in a next level of intoxication, a next level of indulgence that a person would desire. The kind of mandate your soul will give to chase materialism is going to be heightened to the highest degree. It's going to be higher than what in the third and the seventh when it comes to the 11th. Because Venus signifies relationships, it can bring opportunities to your life to have multiple relationships. It can bring in multiple affairs, love, romances that automatically happen for you. You will find opportunities coming for you pretty easily. And it could also signify if it is getting that impetus from a malefic that you chase some of them to fruition as well. Venus in the 11th is going to make you highly materialistic by nature as well. Materialism is going to be on the high doesn't mean it brings an imbalance to spirituality. Your spiritual journey, your spiritual heights are very dependent on your material success as well. Because if one remains unfulfilled, you will not be able to accomplish the other bit as well. Remember, spiritual desires are higher, elevated than your material desires. That's how the mind is working. That is how that pyramid is coming into play. In simple terms, it is like the Maslow's pyramid or laws of hierarchy, right? So spirituality is at the next level, at the next level, and that is how it is seen in the 12th house as well. But Venus coming in here will not be able to deliver spirituality to you unless and until it is able to help you deliver the material gains in your life. It can make you very indulgent. You could be a person who enjoys that specific Pinot Noir, that wine, that Chardonnay in your hand. You could be very specific about that Scotch, that single malt that you prefer. It can bring in your interest in very specific art forms. Sometimes it will entice you towards chasing those box tickets at a Wimbledon, at a sports ceremony, in music concerts and stuff, because you would want to go and pursue and experience that. Venus here is fifth from the seventh. In your relationships, many of you will find that your relationship, your partner, especially for a man, your wife is going to bring in gains. Your wife, your partner, your spouse could be the reason to help you fulfill your desires as well. And that's a beautiful thing to happen. It's a remedy in itself, folks. If you ever struggle with having some tricky situations in life, go back to your spouse and ask them to help you fulfill your dreams. And then you will realize automatically it will help you course correct your path, your life as well. Because Venus here can deliver beautiful results as well as very shaky results for your relationships. As I said, it can bring in multiple relationships for you, can make you a Casanova. Not necessarily. I'm scared of some of the comments people make because some of the folks, they don't want to understand the gist and they are like, I am so pious that I don't have anything of that sort. I have nothing to say to you. But if you are in the same rhythm with me, what I'm trying to tell you is nobody is here to judge you, to judge me with what is happening, because somewhere I've started to believe it is the placement of these planets that has naturally come to us. And our karma is to find that balance, even if something tricky is happening. So just put that thought towards it. And being materialistic, striving for money is not at all a bad thing. It's just that once you fulfill, you have to go to the next one as well, which is what spirituality can be brought through this Venus as well, but in a different form. You will understand that with this Venus here, the probability of you having female kids will be higher than the male child because Venus is giving an aspect to your fifth house as well. Speculative gains are definitely a possibility. There is a very strong chance of people with Venus in 11th making additional side incomes through speculative activities. It could be participating in lottery, gambling, more importantly, investments that they make, stock market, stock trading, etc., will come naturally to you to give those results. Of course, the Dashant and the Antardashas also have to support you in the right way. But in general, that's a very positive outcome that comes into play when Venus is coming into your 11th house. You are going to be good. It might not result definitely in terms of monetary gains, but you are going to be good in some sort of an art form. You could be good in terms of expressing your thoughts in the form of a poetry. You could be good in terms of playing a musical instrument. And it depends, of course, in partnership with your fifth lord or your 11th lord as well. But you could be very articulate, say, with your speech in how you are communicating, and you might make money out of it as well. If it is in connection, let's say, with a Mercury, it can bring flirtatious energies as well if it is with Mercury. But you have to understand that this Venus is here to help you fulfill your objectives. It is here to fulfill your material goals in some shape or form. You are going to do very well in professions that are related to Venus as well, because 11th is second to the 10th. So working, and you don't necessarily have to look at that bit as well. Any side hustle, any side income which is outside of your core profession can be seen with Venus in the 11th if you are focusing in that direction. So you might be, let's say, a construction working industry person, worker in your day job, but in your evenings you do a side hustle of selling hamburgers, and that's perfectly fine. Venus will be able to help you with that. Or you could actually be the ones I see so many times when I visit San Francisco over the weekends, or you find that in New York and in all large cities, people, they are just playing some music instrument. They have a profession, but they are just playing some music instrument. They showcase their talent and they get some tips. People just give them favors with whatever experience that they are able to provide to the public. Venus is able to do that, provide that side income to you. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. I'm not trying to tell you that you have to do anything of that sort, but what I'm trying to tell you is it brings the possibility of additional income through the art form, through your creativity, through working in the food industry, through creating some. There are so many people selling products, craft products on Etsy, on a bunch of these art related websites. Why? Because Venus is giving them that additional impetus, and they're just putting those longer hours over the weekends because that's their passion project and it makes them their earnings. This painting has come from somebody, and it was pretty expensive. It came in from Turkey. I had to do a lot of research with a specific person. I've not taken a photo shot from somewhere. It's made on glass. It's painted on glass. Okay. Again, that denotes a person who's deriving outcomes using Venus in 11th. Your relationships can bring in gains. Your marriage can bring you growth with Venus in the 11th house. Post your marriage, post that person coming in your life, that romance coming in your life, you find a profession, you find a promotion, that results into some better outcome. And that is a beautiful thing to happen. But we have to be cautious of the other aspects as to how it can make you more desirous and pursue other things which may not be what you effectively be wanting for your life as well. So if you're able to find that balance with this Venus, it's a beautiful placement to be in. Now, the last placement is that of Venus in the 12th house. What a beautiful placement this is. And there are so many videos that will talk about the negative aspects of it or how this can be detrimental. I think it's a beautiful placement because this Venus is coming into its natural sign of exaltation in a way. First of all, just like the first house, it is going to make you a very romantic person deep inside. It can make you a very spiritual person as well. But Venus is coming into the house of bed pleasures. It is coming into a house where he wants to express his libido. And the tricky bit that can happen in this is that if it is not in a good sign, and we will be talking about Venus in different signs as well as the next series after, this can actually impact a character of a person. It can take you in directions where you would want to address your libido, where you would want to address your sexual and physical desires in a very negative shape and form, very similar to the 8th house. 8th house will actually result into gains where you will end up offering that. But in 12th house, you will go and consume that. And I hope a word to the wise. So you're getting the indication that I'm giving here. It will take drastic measures to address your desires in that space. It can also heighten your interest in terms of luxurious products, luxury buying. So it brings a high spending ability in a person. You might be a big spender, but guys, only a person who makes big money is able to spend big. I'm not talking about that 1% who's misusing their credit cards or their father's money, or even if they are, then essentially that is what their chart promises them to do. But Venus here can make you make purchases which are very luxurious by nature. It, in a tricky situation, can bring in expenses which are big in size as well, related to hospital, related to legal matters, related to jail. Criminal situations can arise with Venus in this placement in an afflicted situation. So we have to be watchful on that front. But the beautiful part of this Venus is it is coming into a sign where it wants to express, and it wants to express its spirituality as well. It is elevated to a certain level because, see, this is the house of spirituality. It is not religion that I'm referring to here. It is a place where Venus takes you above the rest of the people around you. You have a higher form of thinking as well with this Venus. And the beauty is that you are able to take yourself with that higher form along with the material aspects of life. You are able to address challenges that you are facing in a very articulate way. It's okay if I'm falling sick. I'm going to take it. I'm going to fight this disease. I'm going to fight this medical situation with a smile on my face. That's what this Venus can do to you. It's not at all a bad situation to be in. I'm going to face my obstacles in a neutral mindset. I'll be very balanced in this situation. It's a benefic planet. But Venus doesn't get the taint of being in the 12th house because he gets exalted in the sign of its enemy, as I said. He is so balanced, he is able to see good in Jupiter as well, and where Jupiter does better. So he's able to appreciate that bit as well. And that is the beauty of this Venus for you. He's aspecting your 6th house as well. People who are associated with the medicine industry, who are associated with conflict resolving, conflict resolution side of work, you are going to find that you are able to do well in that sphere of life as well. You will find success with that. Your profession, your career could be related in that sphere. You will be, the kind of charity, donation and stuff that comes to you where you want to do good for others will have a lot of monetary aspect to it. You would want to collect clothes for that matter and go and donate clothes. You would want to help people with education and give them some money to do it. You might go and, in fact, that is a remedy if you're not doing it. Because if you buy medicines for people and you are going to donate that to a hospital or any orphanage and stuff, it is going to give you some stupendous outcomes. You could be pet loving person for that matter. Adopting a pet and taking care of a pet is going to be beautiful for you. So you will, that compassion towards pet is also going to come with Venus in 12th. In fact, that happens for Venus in 6th as well. And I missed calling it out for the Venus in 6th folks. So that interest will be there. You are going to see the obstacles coming in your way in the form of opportunities as well if this Venus is rightly placed in a good sign. Yes, there can be challenges when malefics are impacting it. When it becomes a functional malefic as well in your chart, and that is when this Venus can decode you and take you in absolutely crazy directions in life. It can, as I said, stoop low in terms of its character as well. But in general, when I look Venus in the 12th house, even if it is your lugging lord going 12th to itself, I do not see it negatively. The only caution that I throw is Venus in combustion, Venus in debilitation can bring tad more challenges for you when compared to an exalted Venus or a neutral Venus for that matter. And we will deep dive on that at some point later. But I hope, folks, you've enjoyed understanding what Venus does in all houses. If you have, then I have just one simple request. Please smash on that like button, subscribe to Devastrology, and keep watching. Om Namah Shivaya.